Partner Vito Navarra. They answered that job and were first to respond to the scene. They entered through an open door and they were followed in by two 2-5 cops. Once inside the premises, they heard noises coming from the second floor, so they immediately started going up the stairs. As they got halfway up the stairs, they were attacked by 10-15 men from the front and the rear, and one of these men also had locked the door so no one else can get in. These cops were thrown down the stairs, stomped, pushed, beaten, and while Phil Cardillo was lying on the floor, someone ripped his gun out of his holster and shot him at point-blank range. Meanwhile, on the outside of the premises, the arriving cops couldn't get in. One of those cops was Rudy Andre. Rudy Andre is usually here every year. He was unable to make it this time. But Rudy saw what was going on through the front door. There was a little glass pane window. And he saw the cops being beaten, and Rudy made this command decision. He took out a service revolver, broke the window, stuck his hand in, cutting his hand doing so, and started shooting over the heads of these perpetrators. This allowed one of the cops to break loose from the assault, and he opened the door for the rest of the cops to come in. Once inside, with Rudy leading the way, they chased them down to the basement, where all these perpetrators were apprehended and put in handcuffs. So therefore, everyone was captured. That should be the end of the story. All you had to do then was figure out who shot him, who the people were that committed the assaults, so on and so forth. And however, this was not done. Meanwhile, on the outside, a large, disorderly crowd had started to gather. And police supervisors, high supervisors started to respond, as well as politicians. They figured that to diffuse this disorderly crowd that was gathering outside, they would make some kind of a deal. The cops had to get out of the mosque, period. And they figured also, well, we're going to also release the prisoners, and we'll make a deal that they'll come back later on that day to an adjoining precinct. Can you believe this? I can't believe I'm saying this. But anyway, that's exactly what happened. The police on the scene were ordered to get out of the mosque, ordered to unarrest their prisoners and get out of the mosque. And that's exactly what they did. Because in those days, an order given was an order obeyed. Now, in the next few days that transpired, while Phil Cardillo was in a hospital fighting for his life, excuse me. While he's fighting for his life, there were people within our own job that were saying that these cops were wrong to get into that mosque. They were accused by others of, number one, it was another cop that shot him, or Phil Cardillo shot himself. And it just went on and on and on. Nobody was blaming the perpetrators. Nobody was doing anything. And by the way, the people that were supposed to respond later on that day to the precinct, to the adjoining precinct, which would have been a 2-5 precinct, they never showed up. And 40-something years later, they still didn't show up. So that's why we gather here every year. This is a story that got to be told. Neither the police commissioner or the mayor had the fortitude to go and visit Cardillo while I was in the hospital, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. They never went to the hospital to go visit him. When Cardillo passed away, they didn't even go to his funeral. This is unheard of. When a police commissioner or the mayor of the city of New York does not go to the funeral of one of their men It's absolutely incredible, incredible. And then to top it off, at the conclusion, they assigned one detective to investigate the homicide. Usually in a case like this, you assign hundreds. You assign as many as you need. They assigned one detective. And they put his office or his desk, a toilet. Does that begin to tell you where this case was going? Absolutely incredible what was done. Well, Randy did the best that he could in the investigation. He was given parameters. You can't go to the mosque, and you cannot speak to any of the Muslims that were in the mosque. So unless this is some kind of a new strategy, I wonder how you do an investigation. How do you devise an investigation when you can't go to the place where it happened, and you can't talk to the people who did it? What happens? I mean, what do you do? Well, anyway, it lingered on, this case, for years, until Randy finally developed a witness that was inside the mosque, and he became the sole witness to the occurrence. It went to trial, and it was found that they had a hung jury. It was 10 for conviction and 2 for acquittal. Subsequently, they had another trial, and that person was found not guilty. He was guilty as hell. But because they had no crime scene, they had nothing. The cops were told, get out of the mosque, so there was no crime scene involved. There was no ballistics. There was nothing. There was no evidence that was gathered. And that's the reason why this guy walked.